This morning I was doing an interview for a website in Australia for the upcoming breakthrough events that will be happening in 2017 there. And the interviewer asked me a question. They said, what was the best advice you have ever received? And I thought about it and I was thinking and I said, well, if I really had to go back to it, it was probably my first failure I've had, because I've had a couple of failures in life. When I was 16 years old, I got hired at Jive Records to be a radio promoter. And I was the guy who was calling radio stations, making sure that they were slinging the rock music. And I got to work with some really great artists at this point. And that quickly turned into me becoming a regional promotions coordinator, where I actually had a section of the country that I was responsible for promoting radio of all genres, videos. This is before you could just upload it online. You actually had to send videos and work it to get them to play your video on their station or on their video show. And I also was in charge of retail promotions, which shows you how dated I am as well. So I did that for a couple of years, and I was the boy wonder, and everybody was just amazed that the 16, 17-year-old kid had this full-time gig and was just climbing up the ladder. A few years down the road, I decided to start a company, a music company. And in the first year, I profited $250,000 at the age of 20. And it was an amazing task. Everybody wanted to be my friend. Everybody wanted to hang out with me. And I don't blame them. I was buying everybody everything. To the next year, getting so full of myself, to reading my own press, to believing my own hype, I bankrupted myself. I was completely flat broke. I was fat. I was miserable. I wouldn't answer my phone because it was probably a bill collector that was calling me. And nobody could get a hold of me because I wouldn't answer my phone. So I did what anybody does in that situation when you're about to lose everything and bank accounts are overdrawn. You go get a job at Starbucks. And I was slinging coffee and I was serving it to people. And this guy came in, his name was Corey, and I knew Corey from years ago when I actually started in the music industry. And Corey was always one of these people that you wanted to be. He was just a handsome-looking guy. He always had the best clothes on, the best cars. He had the beautiful wife, 2.5 perfect children, and he was just the model of success. And he was kind of taken back when he came in and saw me, serving him his Frappuccino. And so he's sitting in there and he's reading a book. And so I go up to him to catch up. And I was very bitter and very angry and embarrassed, but that was a misdirected emotion at that moment in time. So I asked Corey, I said, what are you reading? He said, I'm reading this book called The Visionary by Andy Stanley. And I said, is it any good? He said, this is the book you need to get you back on track. And I thought, okay. I said, well, how'd you hear about it? He says, well, I work for the publisher. I was actually one of the guys who worked on this book. And I said, oh, wow, so you could get me a free book. He said, absolutely, I could. I said, well, will you? He said, no. And I kind of paused and I looked at him and I said, oh okay. Well, why not? He says, look, it's $20 at the bookstore. If I give it to you, there's no value behind it. But if you actually make a financial sacrifice, you actually put the money on the counter to buy these resources, then you're committed financially. Because where your money's at is mostly where your heart's going to be. I said, well, how much is it? He said, $20. And I said, okay. He said, I told you that. I said, yeah, I know, but I'm just shocked that you won't give it to me for free. I said, $20? That's how much I'm going to make in tips today doing coffee here at Starbucks. He said, well, if it's important to you, you'll make the sacrifice. And I went back that night, in my apartment. I think I had lawn furniture inside because, my roommate moved out and took all the furniture because who wanted to be around me? I was miserable. And I'm contemplating this entire time. What do I do? Do I go and spend $20? Do I go and spend basically a day's worth of pay for this stupid book that he could give me for free? So finally, after a couple of days wrestling with myself, I walked into a bookstore and I bought this book, The Visionary. And the minute I started reading it, it was a book that instantly was about me. It was about, how do you get back on track after you've gotten off track? And I was telling the interviewer today that what the significant thing about that story is not the book. I don't even know if the book's in print anymore. The significant thing about that book and that story, the significant thing about the story, I don't know where my life would be today if I didn't make that sacrifice. If I didn't put the $20 down to buy the book. Would I still be slinging coffee? Would I be, working at a gas station? Nothing wrong with any of those jobs. We need those people. But I believe that God put me on earth for this one thing, and that's helping artists. And the purpose of the story is that as artists, we like to have the mindset of, well, what can you do for me? What are you going to do for me? How can you help me? I'm not paying a nickel for this resource. I'm not even going through the trouble of subscribing on an email list to get resources from a Bob Lefsetz because everything happens for me. I really want to challenge you at this time with this introduction here. Do your research. If your career is going absolutely perfect, you're probably not even listening to this. But if you need extra resources, extra guidance, extra emotion, there are resources out there. I mean, I'm coming out, going to be doing breakthrough events. The tickets are going to be very cheap, but it's a crowd control thing. And we do that because when we come to a city and we're here to help artists, we just don't want to do that with everybody, because half the room will just kind of sleep through it or just go, that was nice, but I'm just going to keep sending money to these fake A&R guys and hoping I get a record deal. So when we come to your town, yeah, there's going to be money involved, but really this whole thing is about, we really want to make sure that we limit the people who can and cannot go. And if you're serious about your career, then you can find the money to do something. You can find the time to go the extra mile. You can find the time not to pay for fake followers, but to get real followers or to get real views. You can make that sacrifice. It's not about your resources. You have plenty of resources around the world these days. The problem is your resourcefulness. Do you utilize the time that you've been given? Do you utilize the gift of the internet? Do you utilize the gift of social networking? Or do you just kind of do what most people do, and that's just throw it out there and just wait for you to bump into success? I really want to challenge you as we're ending 2016 and we're getting ready for 2017. Make this your standard barrier that I am not going to tolerate subparness. I'm not going to tolerate laziness. I'm not going to tolerate somebody else doing my push-ups for me. If you go to a gym and you just kind of hang out by the water cooler, you're not going to get a lot of results. You got to actually put the energy, the effort, the commitment behind building a muscle, to losing weight, to growing stronger. The same thing applies in your music career. And so I just wanted to share with you really quickly my advice that I believe changed my life. And it really kind of was something I didn't even think about until today when I was doing the interview. And I can't wait to join you in 2017 at a breakthrough event or at different conferences or on the Matthew Ricks radio show. Please make sure that whatever you do, it's your commitment to excellence. Join me at MatthewRicks.com. I got absolute free resources for you there. And I want our lives together to be a masterpiece. And until next time, let your dreams be bigger than your reality.